Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, great. Welcome to Slow Art Friday. I'm Kelly Baisley, School and Family Programs Manager. Today I am joined by Master Docent Doris Potash and Touring Docent Barbara Pressman. They'll be facilitating the conversation today. Each Friday at 12 p.m. while the museum is closed, docents lead virtual, interactive conversations about a few artworks in our collection or special exhibitions. The goal is simple: slow down, discover the joy of looking at art, and talk about the experience with others. For today's program, Doris and Barbara will lead us in an interactive conversation about 4 artworks in our collection. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so with each artwork. Doris and Barbara will allow us time to look at each work on our own, slowly, before leading a conversation about each one with questions. As participants, we encourage you to engage in dialogue with Doris, Barbara, myself, and each other throughout the hour. We'll just go over some ground rules for how we're set up today. When you come into the Zoom meeting, your microphone and video are muted by default. We suggest that you find a quiet room and close the door. Silence all alerts on your phones or other devices. Try not to sit in front of a window, a lamp, or other strong light source. Use headphones and microphones for best sound quality. We also suggest using a desktop, laptop, or tablet so that you can see the Zoom controls and the slides nice and big. Make sure your screen name includes your first name and last initial or last name. To ask questions during our chat, you have a few options. You can unmute your microphone and just speak freely. You can type into the chat box, or you can raise your hand in the participant sidebar and the moderator will call on you. We are recording. If you prefer not to be recorded, please just make sure that your video and your audio remain muted, and you can use the chat box to submit questions and comments. Do we have any questions? Okay. Doris and Barbara, what will we be talking about today? Unmute. Sorry, hold on one second, Doris. I think I've got you all muted. Okay, try now.
There we go.
Sorry about that.
Thanks, Kelly. And I think that I'd like to add my compliment to the comments in the chat box about your choice of music. Very clever. It takes two, so appropriate for the theme today. We're going to be talking about artists who are couples. And so we have 2 pairs of artists. And as you're looking at the art, we're going to ask you to not only focus on the individual artwork, but also think about, especially after we discuss the second of the pair, think about how of these artists may or may not have influenced each other based on what you see in the artwork. So Kelly, go ahead and show our first artwork. All right, let me just ask you, I know that some of you have had the opportunity to focus on this and think about it a little before our session, but for those who haven't, we'll give you a few seconds just to take a look at this. Think about where your eye went first when you first started looking at this. All right, anyone like to speak up about where their eye went first? And you can unmute yourselves. I think Kelly will allow you to do that when you're ready to talk. What'd you notice first?
My eye first went to the eye on the right as I'm facing the abstract photo. It looks like an abstract face to me with some muted pastel colors, and I was drawn to the right eye and then to the mouth.
All right, so muted colors, pastel colors, and your eye was drawn to what you see as an eye on the right. And Kelly, I can't point. Can you use your pointer? And is this where you're looking at?
Correct, yes.
And so what is it that makes it look like an eye to you?
Maybe the shape and the positioning of it in relative to what I'm deeming to look like a mouth at the bottom.
Okay, so you're seeing a face in this artwork.
Yes.
How about someone else?
I am Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
Hi. I was drawn to the three more round objects in it, I guess because everything else looked so linear. You know, either horizontal or vertical stripes, and then, you know, kind of a square in the middle there and whatever, and two rectangles. And so I noticed the three, one circle and two more oval shapes.
All right, so your eye was drawn to the three shapes that are more curved, either circular or oval, because they stood out among all of the the lines and the rectangles. Yeah.
Right.
What else?
Yeah, I'll echo that. Seeing those three circular pieces is what drew me, what I focused on in the midst of all of the colors. And part of it reminded me of a ram, not seeing the horns, but just the face, the top two circles as the eyes, and then the bottom one is the mouth part. And if you look closer within the oval section, you could see maybe the tip of the nose, and that section that's a deeper peach, maybe the opening of the mouth.
Okay, so it looks kind of like an animal to you based on the shapes and the positioning of the shapes, like a ram. But you said you didn't see horns of a ram, but it just the face shape reminded you of ram. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I saw it as the three heads. The circles are three heads, or the ovals, and I saw relationship between or among them, but not all three of them to one another. For example, the two top ones both have an overlap with the rectangular pieces that are covering their heads, the corner of their heads. They both overlap with the lower one, but not with each other. You see where the points fold into the one on the bottom. And I kind of looked at it possibly as a relationship of a couple with a child, or some other way where their communication with one another was through a third person.
Okay, so Angela, it sounds like you are picking up on the title of the artwork, which is Three Heads. And so you're looking at the circular oval shapes, those three, as the heads, and talking about the upper two that are kind of overlapping, the bottom that is not, and seeing those as perhaps parent and child. What is it that makes you interpret this as parents and child? Anything in particular?
Well, I think because it looks like the other ones are taller. Obviously, they're disembodied, but you know, they're above it, and that is between the two upper heads.
Okay. So basically, the higher level positioning that you're interpreting as height as you're looking at it.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
I've got something to say.
Mel?
What else?
Oh, hello, yeah, I'm Steve with Barbara.
Hi, Steve.
Speaking. I see Edward Munch as the scream madness, the two eyes.
Oh, yeah.
They're not quite all both around at the top, left and right, and then at the bottom of the mouth. Now I know in Munch he had a nose, but there's no nose here because you've got that sea of madness behind them with rectangles and linear shapes, squares and rectangles.
So the shape of that bottom curved part, that sort of oval part, you're interpreting as a mouth being open, like in a scream?
Yeah. And the
Yeah.
mouth and the nose do the same function. You breathe through them, so it's one thing really.
Ah, now
But when
that's
you mesh,
interesting.
know the difference.
Yeah. Thank you.
And although we're together, Stephen and I, we're a couple. So, but I
Ah.
see something totally different. I'm Barbara.
Hi,
And
Barbara.
there's another Barbara on the line, I believe. And, but I, after looking at this for some time now, I'm seeing a mask. So the scarification on the side, you see Yoruba masks that have the scarification, and you know, it's very, for lack of a better word, it's a kind of a primitive art to me, but primitive not in the pejorative sense, but in a very engaging kind of way. It pulls me into like African masks.
So, so again, then, are you seeing this as one face with the two
I
eyes
am.
and the mouth, and then the
Even-
scarification, that sort of tribal scarification on that,
Right.
that
So I
gives
know
it that mask appearance?
Sure, yeah. Even though I know the name of it is the three heads, I do see it as a uniform, and I really get that that mask feeling from it.
I see. Interesting. Mask. Another
And my other
interpretation.
point, sorry to is that I didn't know it was called three. First of all, sorry. So I didn't have that title in my head to go looking for that.
Yeah, sometimes it's interesting. I always, when I give tours, like to have people look at the art without knowing anything about it at first. Because that does sometimes, when we look at art, kind of direct our interpretation. And we might have a totally different interpretation than the artist is necessarily presenting. And we'll see as we move on later that some of the artists don't even give their artworks titles. Can we talk just before we move on about the composition? Is there anything that you find that's interesting about the composition? Does it seem balanced to you? Do you see do you see pattern there?
Doris,
Yes.
I put my flag up for participant, but I don't know if it's working or not because I'm not.
Oh, you know what, Kelly? If you could watch the hands, because I can't see hand raised too well.
Yes, I tried to call on Mel a couple times, but
Oh, okay.
I was
Thanks.
somebody else started talking at the same
Okay.
time.
Okay. Go, Mel.
When I look at this screen, if others will look at the lavender rectangle, the long rectangle,
Mm-hmm.
and also the yellow one. There's a sharing of design and colors and overlapping that all of a sudden these rectangles, the squares and everything jump out at you. And like the light lavender on the right with the lime green egg percentage, or the lavender rectangle with how the other square box moves into it, or the very large yellow one that's in the center. And I thought that's what I can't quit seeing it. It takes I hear what other people are saying, but those sharing of colors and limitations of lines and expansion of lines are what just really, I find that extremely interesting.
Yeah, so the way that the colors are placed together and the way that they overlap and the lines kind of draw your eye and create an impact for you, it sounds like.
You have rectangles and squares and all kinds of things.
Yeah, yeah.
Gail had her
yeah.
hand raised. Sorry, Doris. Gail.
Go ahead, Kelly, go.
Yes. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm not reading this as heads or masks or anything. I'm just enjoying it as a composition. And my first entry point was the oval on the right, the lime green. And then I started bouncing around and just enjoying the beautiful orchestration of the intensity of that color throughout the piece. And because I read from left to right, I often read paintings that way. So from there, I bounced down to the darker green in the center on the circular piece, but I immediately went over to those three little pieces on the left, those three little stripes. And they kind of bounced me right back. But what's interesting is that one up in the center, at the very top. I don't know the size of this piece, but it looks like it's probably a couple inches long. That green piece just points me right down into the piece again. And so there's a wonderful circular pattern going on there as my eye moves around. But the other thing I spent some time with and was really enjoying it are those lime green stripes over on the right-hand side. And they start out just being stripes, but somehow when those white ones are bordered by that also light-ish piece, it's not quite the same value. It's a little cooler, it's a little bluer, but still they seem to connect. And that seemed to make like a boundary that those stripes are only that big right there. They're like a piece of something, whereas they're below, they sort of disintegrate and fall apart.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's some rhythm to the patterns are creating some rhythm that's kind of pulling your eye around that. And it took me a while when I first started looking at this to sort of pick up the pattern, and then once I saw it, I couldn't like unsee it, and I'm starting to, you know, recognize all the patterns, particularly with those little lines along the side. Sally says it reminds her of 60s colors. And this was interesting. This was done in 1946. The artist is John Urbane, and he was a Black Mountain College student. It is, someone was asking about the size or reflecting on what they thought the size was. It's 14 by 17 and 7/8, so 14 almost by 18. And John Urbane studied under Joseph Albers when he was at Black Mountain. And this was done during the time he was a student there. And he actually was probably best known, from what I could find in my research, as for his collages. So even though this is a painting, I don't know if you see any references to collage there. Does it kind of remind you of collage at all?
It does remind me of a collage, but I also want to say about the color. I'm very struck by how much yellow there is in the picture, but yet it's not overpowering. And the way the pieces are put almost together does give you a sense of a little bit of motion, like along the edges, like they could be little wiggling fingers to me.
Yeah, it does. It has that sort of excitement and motion about it, just because of the patterns in the lines, I think, and that the bright color. Sometimes it's really hard to tell, at least on my computer screen, the exact tone and value of the color, but kind of that background, the darker background looks almost golden to me on my computer screen. And I've never seen this in this actual work. I would love to see it. It's really beautiful. And we talked about the fact that it's 3 heads. I saw a profile in there. I was trying to find 3 heads, and you know, some people saw the 3 sort of circular oval shapes as the heads, and some people saw that face in the middle, which I saw. But I saw a profile on the left. That purple rectangle looks like the side of a head, and then that sort of peachy, sort of almost triangle part looks like the nose, and then part of the round thing looked like an eye. So I'm thinking, okay, I see the big head, I see the side head, where's the 3rd head? And then I was talking to someone about it earlier when I was sort of doing some studying. They said, oh, the 3, you know, sort of circular oval shapes are the 3 heads. So, okay. But it's just interesting. I just think it's a beautiful work, and I really like it. John Urbane, his wife, was also a student at Black Mountain College, and she's our next artist, and Barbara is going to talk a little bit about that. Barbara Pressman.
And mute myself. I was being quiet for Doris. I want everybody to take a look at this. And I think maybe some of you have seen it, so let's look at it with some fresh eyes and spend a few minutes, a few seconds, we don't want to spend minutes, looking at it and seeing what you can find. Okay. What's going on in this painting? I can't see anybody, so I can't see anybody. So please jump in, and I'll need your help, Kelly, because I can't see any hands raised.
This one looks to me a lot like a face is hiding in the colors as well.
Very
You
good.
see a face in the upper middle, and at first that's all I saw, but now I see a guy. That's the face of a guy who's like leaning forward in cobbler's pose in yoga, or like sitting on the ground, leaning forward. Yeah, like Joey said, thinking about something, staring off in the distance.
Okay, so you see someone hiding obscured in the colors, and they're in a pensive pose, leaning forward. You even said maybe a yoga pose, and Joey had said that he also thought it was thinking. So Joey, what did you see that made you say that she was, oh, this person, or
I see arms, and I see a hand against a chin, like the thinker. Someone's thinking about something, and yes, exactly. That's a forearm, that's the hand, and the other arm's coming around. So I see somebody pondering a question, and just the two eyes in the head, you know, looks like somebody's been asked a question and is pondering it.
Okay. So
Mel has her hand raised.
Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay. There's a second head that I see, which is up in the hair. If you look at yes, that right in that area, there's a fellow. He looks like he has two eyes, and he has a mustache, and sort of like a bushy mustache. But I think she looks almost, the hairstyle looks almost Japanese. In the typical early era of Japan, they used to cut literally bow bangs on all young girls. So it looks like a contemplative Japanese girl, except the eyes are not quite slanted enough. And that's
I
all.
almost see an upside down head. I know that the signature and the date is on the bottom, but I could almost see that being the head, and then the darker blue on the right being an eye, and the gray on the left being an eye, and
Wow.
being
Kelly,
a
could you
chin.
point to that? I'm not sure I see. Oh, that? Is that what you're talking about?
Come down, Kelly. Come down here.
This one, oh,
Come
towards
down a little more. Yeah, that's an eye to me. And then go straight across to the left with a gray, that could be the other eye. And there can be ears on either of those sides, with the green could be an ear, and the rusty orange could be an ear, and then the bottom could be the top of a head.
Well, that's interesting, and very interesting. And seeing all of these different figures, we see people on the side. I see another one, but I never saw the one that you're talking about, Laurel, and I didn't see the other head with the bushy mustache, but in the hair. And you said it looks like a Japanese kind of hairstyle. And okay, anything else?
I also see 3 profiles that form in this shape towards the bottom right-hand side of the hair itself, and what we're determining is a Japanese haircut. To the right, there's a darker blue profile, and then next to the left of that, there's a white profile, and then it concludes with a black profile. So I'm seeing within what is termed as the eye, I'm seeing 3 different profiles there. And then I'm seeing 2 other, I guess, whimsical Gretel and Hansel profiles on the right-hand side of her head.
Well, that is so wonderful that everybody's finding so many interesting profiles and faces, and yeah, it's really interesting, and things that I didn't see when I was looking at this.
Barbara?
Yes?
I see the dog too.
I'm not sure to chime in.
Yes, go right ahead, Sharon.
Okay, thank you. I love everyone's comments. And when I first saw it, I just thought that's an eyebrow right up there in the top right. I just love that arched eyebrow.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of saw a face there. But then I began looking at it as more of a whole, and the front, I don't know, that, like if you look at like just the white here, like kind of an egg shaped, but wider at the bottom, certainly. And then how it's outlined by the brown, yellow, and orange going around it. So there is actually a line around this white shape in the middle, a large white shape for the face, I guess what we're describing as a face. So that's begun to interest me, in that if there was an egg sitting up and there was light behind it somehow coming in of all different colors, kind of outlining it. And I like that because it kind of brings the composition together and makes a central place where we're all looking.
Okay, so you feel that the colors and the white shape around it is bringing your eye, is making you attracted to the face.
Yeah, it's outlining the white large space centrally.
Right. And I think Joey and someone earlier had mentioned that they thought that those were possibly arms in the thinker position. So maybe it is, you know, so there's a feeling here that maybe it's highlighting or making it stand out.
Interesting.
And Kathy has her hand raised.
Oh, Kathy?
Yes. I find the colors and the technique to be very interesting. The colors, to my eye, struck me initially as primary, blue, yellow, and the red, or variations of that. There's a little green and secondary, but it still strikes me as a very simple but full color palette. And the watercolor almost technique of it lends a spirituality, I think, to it. It's not, you know, pure realism in making a portrait, but it seems to enhance or embrace someone's entire being and spirit to me.
Wow. Now, yeah, I think I see that too. I feel that there's the softness of the colors. I think you're saying the softness of the colors make it seem more ethereal, or is that what you're trying to say, that makes it feel spiritual and, and uplifting? Yes, I can see that as well. I know that we have 4 pieces today, so I know that we need to move on. This is Elaine Schmidt-Urbane. And it is, she was at Black Mountain College, and you can see that it's dated, and it's at the same time as the previous, her husband's. They met at Black Mountain College, and this is a portrait of Ruth Asawa. Maybe some of you saw that earlier this week. When I first saw this is one of my favorites, not my favorite piece in the museum. I was attracted to the face and the expression in the eyes of what I see there. And now knowing all I do about Ruth Asawa, I think that that Elaine captured her very, very well, and her spirituality and her spirit, as Kathy had mentioned earlier. So I think that's very interesting. And Elaine went on to do many portraits. She was known for doing more portraits. She moved to upstate New York, Peekskill, I imagine, with John, and she was very involved in the 60s in Peace Mark, and she even had a radio program. But today, because we're looking at couples, Doris set this up. I was wondering, Kelly, can we see these side to side so that we could possibly make some kind of see some similarities or differences in these two paintings? Is that possible?
I don't think I have the ability to show them side to side, but I could flip back up.
Okay. Okay. So that's the question. Is there any similarities that you might see between these two paintings.
Barbara Marie has something on the chat where she's asking if the pieces on the faces or the heads may have influenced each other. So she might want to say a little more about that. So she's thinking that maybe, it looks like she's thinking maybe they did.
That they, okay, go ahead.
I'm thinking that because they seem to have heads, faces as part of their pieces, but also noting too that they used softer colors, warmer colors, and especially for hers to be able to maybe minimize the harshness of, say, the darker color of maybe the black itself. So I'm wondering how much, it seems like there was an influence, and that's their version and interpretation of what they wanted to be able to show.
Okay, I could see that too, thank you. Anybody else see something? What else can we find that would make
like I saw with the first one, I see this as relationships among people. The Asawa has several, fragments of faces other than the central one, and they're all enclosed in like a cloud or a bubble maybe, and I see them as influencing one another, like I did in the first one, the three heads, communicating and influencing.
So each of these pieces have figures within them that are a unit or influences upon each other. So the two artists might have had something in common by including other people and communities in their artworks. Someone said something about the shapes in the chat box.
In the chat, Sally says that they both emphasize shapes.
Okay.
I'm wondering, since they were both students of Joseph Albers at the same time, whether there might have been a class assignment. I don't know. I was trying to do some research to see, but I couldn't find anything that would indicate that. But, it almost seems like maybe there was some assignment to do something, and that's why they look so similar. I don't know if Kelly or Christy know any more about that.
Well, one thing that we learned from the Ruth Asawa biography earlier this week is that Albers would sort of give his students problems to solve as their daily assignments. I don't know enough about his teaching methods to give you an example of what one of those might be, but I have a feeling that the urbane is probably a direct result of one of Albers's assignments, because we have an artwork in the collection by Joseph Albers that reminds me strongly of this John Urbane work on paper, but I'm not sure about the Elaine Urbane because that looks quite unlike, I think, something done by Albers. So they were done at the same time, I think, before they were married, but they definitely would have both been taking classes with Albers and exploring the juxtapositions of color and shape and how colors put next to each other work in your eye and affect your perception of color. So even if it wasn't a direct class assignment, it definitely would have been influenced by their classes with him.
And I just wanted to point out, because also going to the Ruth Asawa thing, I feel like there's a great deal of affection or respect for her in this particular portrait. And in fact, it was Elaine Schmidt, before she became Elaine Schmidt Urbane, who influenced Ruth Asawa to come to Black Mountain. So they were very good friends. So this is a friend painting a picture of a friend, but that was very frequent in Black Mountain that they would paint one another. So are you ready to move on to the next one?
Favorite of the day.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, a little bit different from some of the things we've seen. I want to see if anyone sees a face in this one.
Oh my.
A cyclops.
Oh dear.
Just take a couple seconds to look at it. And look at it closely, because I know for me, the first time I looked at it, it was different from when I looked at it again. I made some assumptions that after I looked at it, I go, well, that's not exactly correct. I'm seeing comments in the chat about the shape, color. Joey sees a big 0.
I see a light switch.
A light switch. What is it that makes you, what do you see that makes it look like a light switch to you?
Probably the shape and the color. It just looks like it's on the wall of a very modern home and very bright. And I can just see the green in the middle. Just looks to me like I just want to flip a switch.
And I don't know, again, on my computer screen, it doesn't show up too well, but it does, these two shapes have also a white background. Can you see that on your computer, or does it all kind of blend into the background of the slide? It's just
very.
Yeah.
Kelly, can you maybe point out the edges of the, yeah.
Thanks, Kelly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see a light switch, you think of, you know, that single switch that has like the plate and then the little switch in the middle.
Correct, yes.
And some other people are agreeing with you in the chat box.
Can I say
Doris?
something about it, Doris? Would you mind?
Yes.
To me, it's a little off center. You know, when you first look at it, you're thinking this is a rectangle and a rectangle, but if you look at it rather closely, it's not quite a rectangle. It has a little curve to it, and it's a little tilted, askew, you know.
Yeah, so it's so Barbara is seeing that now. You're talking about which of the exterior shape, the orange shape, is has a little bit of a slope to it, as Kelly's kind of pointing out, and slightly curved. Right. So so again, when I first looked at this, I thought it was a rectangle, and then I looked again. I was like, no, it's not really, and it's not centered, as you say.
And the green shape isn't a perfectly straight line either. I mean, if you took a level, it's totally not level.
Yeah. Is the green shape parallel to the orange shape? Can you tell, horizontally parallel?
It's almost like an optical illusion. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
It looks like the green shape is pushing the orange shape out, both sideways and vertically, and that's why it's not a straight line rectangle anymore, because the green shape is expanding the orange shape.
Okay, so that contrast of color is playing tricks with your eye then for you, and making it look like it's pushing that other shape.
To me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Sharon.
Hi, Sharon.
I don't know how many of you have been in a class where they have had you stare kind of very intently for a minute or two, a long time, at a central color like this green. And then when you look away at a white piece of paper or something, you'll see another color that your eye then conjures from it. So I was kind of looking at it very, straightforward for a while. And when I looked away, I saw kind of a pink in the center instead of the green. So it looks like one of those tests that they sometimes do in an art class where they want you to start thinking about colors that either contrast with or that are paired with other colors.
Yeah. So again, it messes with your brain a little bit when your receptors are seeing those colors.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Lorraine sees a red strobing when she stares at it.
Mm-hmm.
Ellen is saying that in the chat that the contrast of the colors, the fact that they're bordering each other creates some movement. Does anyone else get a sense of movement, or does this kind of remind you of something that would make you feel sort of still?
This is one of my favorite pieces. I love this artwork, and it's is it geometric? Is it organic? It's organic, but it's geometric in a sense too. I love the shape, and my eye goes to that green, outer green edge, and where it meets the orange, because it's rather electric. And I wonder how the artist selected just that tone of green and that tone of orange, because they're not complements, right? Orange would
Yeah,
be
they're not
blue,
they're not, yeah.
and green would be red. So it's just fascinating.
Yeah, so it is a little bit different, striking combination than you would expect to see. And I think, Kathy, also building on what you said, does it, and this is a question for everyone, does it look like the colors are kind of blending into one another, or is there just a stark delineation between one color and another?
I see a delineation. I don't see a blending. And I don't, some people have mentioned motion. I don't get the sense of motion, but I almost get the sense of like I could hear music. Like just walking in and looking at this, I can just hear music in the background.
And what music, Laurel, would you hear? What type of music?
Probably some sort of almost like a rock and roll mod. I mean, with a beat, some kind of music with a definite beat to it.
And is that because of the bright colors, that kind of that intensity that you would, that's the music you would hear? Is it the colors that give that sense, or the shapes?
Yeah, I think more the colors than the shape. And I think the one color on top of or next to the other color. So the two colors together, I think just give me that sense of loud beat music.
Yeah. Lorraine is saying now that these look like 70s colors, and they do kind of. This was actually printed in the 60s, in the mid 60s, 64, 65. So he was maybe a little ahead of the popularity of these bright oranges and bright greens.
Well, I'm not sure what we would do with this information, but these are obviously two secondary colors. And the primary that they share is yellow.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if this is built on the primary yellow.
Yeah, because I'm seeing a yellow undertone, that I'm seeing a brighter orange, maybe more in the top, with a little bit of yellow undertones coming towards the bottom. And even in the green, I'm seeing a little bit more of
the yellow.
This yellow, more yellow white in it. So yes, I'm seeing some of the yellow undertones.
Yeah, so an interesting observation about the relationship of these two is the relationship that they have to yellow, to the color yellow, and that they're not in and of themselves primary. Yeah, good observation.
Mel, do you have a comment?
Yes, I don't know if anybody has ever had a color that from childhood you just shied away from. And mine is orange. And I find the painting disturbing. And I think that is something that I have no idea where it comes from, but you'll find no orange in my room, my clothes, my house. And I'm just wondering, you know, would I probably have liked this if I didn't have this an aversion to orange? I have no knowledge. But it's a painful thing for me to look at. And I don't understand that.
Yeah. So you're not sure why, but just kind of always, even from your childhood, not really liking the color orange. Kathy says the color is very emotional. And Joey says he loves orange.
I'm with Joey. I love orange. Doris, the more I look at this, the more three-dimensional it starts to look to me. That green starts to sort of recede and the orange comes towards me. And I start to see this as something that's more three-dimensional or more like a collage than a print.
Yeah, a couple others earlier on in the conversation had mentioned that the way that the way the colors are together makes some things pull up and some things recede. So it's interesting. I mean, to me, this is an artwork that we might look at first, and unless, you know, and then just kind of walk by and either go, oh, that's nice, I like those colors, or oh, I don't really like those colors. But the more you look at it, and really study it, you're either going to like it more or not like it more. But I think you notice more things in it. I thought that the sort of angles of the shapes, the horizontal axis, give it that sense of movement to me. And then with these intense colors, it just kind of stimulates me. It's not something for me I would want to look at before I went to bed, but I might want to look at it when I wake up in the morning with my jolt of caffeine.
There's also the green square rectangle is darker at the top than it is at the bottom. The value of that green changes as it moves from the top to the bottom. And there's just a tiny, tiny little hint of a darker line between that green square and the orange above, but not so down at the bottom, especially the lower left corner of that green square. And I think
Christy,
that's
Christy, do you know whether that's just what we're seeing on the screen, or I don't know if you're familiar with the original to know whether that value changes in the original or not?
We had it on view in the old museum, Doris, but I guess I didn't pay enough attention to it. I might try and pull up while we're talking here another image just to see if it's any different than the one we're looking at. I'll pull that up.
Yeah. Again, this really looking at things on particularly on a computer screen, not to mention looking at reproductions in a book, but sometimes you see things that if you looked at the actual artwork you wouldn't see, and also there are things in the artwork that are there that you'd see when you looked at the original that you don't see on a screen or on a reproduction. Joey's seeing the value too. I can see that slight change in value, but I can't tell. Sometimes it's when I tilt my computer screen I get a different look.
I'm looking at this on my iPad, and I have a setting on my iPad where I can drop the saturation out of an image so that I see it only in grayscale. And when you drop it out, it's pretty obvious.
Okay. Okay. The change in tone is pretty obvious. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thanks. Good.
So I've just pulled up. Sorry, Doris.
That's okay.
I just pulled up a higher resolution version of it, and I think it's probably a little truer to the artwork. The green in my version of it is very, very flat, has little variation, and doesn't really have those differences that the one we're looking at on the screen has, and the orange has absolutely no variations to it. So it is a little bit flatter maybe in this higher resolution one than the one we're looking at on the screen.
Yeah, thanks, Christy, because that's what I've read when I did research about this particular print, that's what he was going for. He just wanted you to look at pure color and pure shape. Although he said that the shapes that he chooses, they're not representational per se, but they're inspired by things that he just sees as he walks along the street. So this has a very creative title. The artist is Ellsworth Kelly. The title is Orange with Green, and it was printed in the 60s. And it's part of a series of 27 color lithographs with similar style, but with different color combinations. And just a couple of, there's a lot, I thought Ellsworth Kelly, I think is just a very interesting artist in terms of his background. But a couple of things that I thought might have inspired him early on. His grandmother introduced him to ornithology when he was about 8 years old. And he's always had a passion for birds. He's a birder. And that's where he says he developed his passion for form and color in bird watching. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Anyway, that was just one comment. There's a lot of others, but I want to move on because we've got another artwork. And yeah, Marie, great point. Marie says the title reflects the simplicity of the piece. And so thank you, Marie. Good way to sum that up. Ellsworth Kelly for a time was partnered not only artistically, but also in an intimate way with Robert Indiana. And so that is our next artist. Let me take a look at this one. What's going on here?
Well, when we first see it, we've been looking at all these other ones with color, and here is the absence of color. We go back to the black and white, where sometimes in a photograph too, it has more power because it's black and white and it's more dramatic. And one of the things that just strikes me is the order of the words are out of order. Like, I think die should be on the bottom. So.
Yeah, that was going to be something I was going to ask us to talk about in a little bit. What if you change the order and how it would change its meaning? So for you, Laurel, the logical order, you die would be at the end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you notice that, you know, again, you pointed out that this is very different from what we've been looking at before, because the others had so much color, and this doesn't. But talk about the variations in the black and white here. This is for everyone, not just Laurel.
Well, the eat at the top obviously is the white letters on the dark background, and the on the bottom is the opposite, and the two in the middle are sort of somewhere in between. You know, it's funny, I don't know how many people have a Kindle. I read on Kindle, and it has a dark mode, and you can switch it from having the dark background to the white letters, or the white background to the dark letters, and it sort of reminds me of my Kindle settings. I don't know.
So the letters on the background at the top and the bottom are flipped in some way. What else do you notice about the printing of the letters?
If you notice the different ways that each block of letters are, the focus is on. In the top one, there's a dark background, so you're focused on those set of letters. Then in the bottom, the next one after that, the die, even though it's a different composition, your eyes are still focused on what the letters are. And the same thing for each of them going down that. Even in the it goes from dark to light. Your eyes are still focused on what the letters are and not so much about what's around it.
So he's really emphasizing those words, the letters in the words, despite the different backgrounds and the sort of fading in some cases, or the lines within the letters, but you can still see those letters stand out regardless of the background in that composition. What else do you notice? What does this mean? Do you get some meaning from this? What does it mean to you? Do you think they're just like random words, or is there a message here?
Can I say something? Something, because people talked about the brightness and darkness.
Yes.
But I just feel like it's the intensity of the emotion. Like, you're very emotional when you're eating, or very satisfied when you die. The grading of the color is like draining away, and the hug seems to have like more coloring, and the white on the air is like lack of happiness, like, uh-oh, you know, and to me, it reflects the amount of emotion that's involved. Seems to me anyway.
So the way that the letters in the background work together seem like they're very specific to that particular word in terms of kind of emphasizing the meaning of that word.
That's how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see what Barbara was just saying, to add on to what she was saying. These would be great subjects if you're in a women's group and or any group, sorry, gentlemen. Any group to discuss your life circumstances. You know, what are you eating? We're all concerned about weight and eating less fats and all this. And of course, we're all concerned about death and dying, and hugging is wonderful. And so I see these all as something that kind of an emotional would make great topics at a discussion group. So we could have that next.
So each individual word, if it weren't a part of this total artwork of four, would in and of itself merit a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and we all could have a resonance with each one of those words. Who hasn't aired? And hopefully we've all hugged, and we've all had a good
miss
meal.
hugging. I only can hug my cat now.
We can wave now. Wave. Okay.
I'm struck by the fact now that they're all 3-letter words. I mean, that stands out. And that they're done in stencil. I mean, if this was script or some other type of font per se for the lettering, I think it would almost have a different meaning per se.
So the script, and in what way? To say a little bit more about if it were script, it would have a different meaning. Can you just say a little bit more about that?
Yeah, just a softer tone.
Softer.
I think that these are very almost like commands, like very dramatic. They're three-letter words. They've got the color and the stencil, as opposed to being flowery or softer in that vein.
Mm-hmm.
Kathy?
Yes, well, I can see, when I look at it, I do see a priority. I prioritize them. My eye first goes to eat, and then it goes to air, probably because of the black and white. And then I go up to hug, because it's got that, you know, heavier or darker gray tone, gray value. And then die. So in a sense, it is in my eye putting die at the end. And even the hug, I love that it's white. It's very esoteric. It's white on the gray. And to me, it might be a message of life, which is something we've been kind of hinting at, that we need sustenance. We need to embrace our and learn from our mistakes. We need to have joy and hug, and we need to accept death. So
yeah. So again, you're pointing out that for you, die would be at the end, and the way that he has composed this, it makes it, for your eye, it could be that would be the final thing you would see, because you wouldn't necessarily be looking linearly from one down to the next. Interesting. Yeah. Any other ideas about what this might mean or what it means to you? I think it's an interesting.
Mel has her hand up.
Okay. Mel.
I don't know about others, but the first thing that struck me was the diminishing of the black background. So, but the order that my eyes put was eat, hug, die, air, because of the lack of the background in air. So I didn't know if that happened to anybody else, but I felt something had been misarranged almost.
Yeah, so, you know, some other people had pointed out that they would put it in different order from the way they looked at it, but yours is, you're looking at it even in a somewhat different way in terms of the way your eye goes, and yours was focusing on the background. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Angela?
Angie?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Did you have a hand up? Yeah.
Yes, I did. Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, I pondered this a lot, but I guess I basically felt that the first three, well, eat and hug are very life affirming. And of course, die is also, you know, part of the life cycle. And then the air, which all of us do, as was mentioned before, the fact that it fades as you go across, I liked anyway to interpret the fact that through the arc of our lives, our errors might become less significant, hopefully, in retrospect. That's my read.
Yeah, I like that. So again, kind of interpreting the meaning of some of these words and what they mean to you based on how they're portrayed through the composition of the background, the intensity of the color. Yeah, Christy let me pull her comment up because I want to read it the way she said it, because some people are reacting to that. And Kelly keeps telling me we're almost out of time. Thank you, Kelly, I know. Let's see. Oh, here Christy says that this is a bad date. Hug, eat, air, die.
It's sort of how you take them in the order. It makes a different story. You know, if you just reorder them, the meaning of the work just changes, you know, completely.
And I think the way that we look at something like this is so much reflective of our experience or our outlook on life. And Robert Indiana, who chose Indiana as his last name because that's where he lived for a period of time, and I think he grew up there, so he changed his name to Indiana. He was a partner with Ellsworth Kelly for a while, romantic partner. They split up. They attribute their split up, and again, I don't know how true this really is, to the fact that Ellsworth Kelly did not think that works like this. And Robert Indiana is the one that made the Love, the Love paintings and sculptures. And so these letters and words were his thing with art, and he's known for that. And Ellsworth Kelly just did not think that this was art. I can't believe that would break up a romantic relationship, but maybe for me it might have been like the excuse I would give. The words were, some of the words had some personal history. Some of these words with Robert Indiana, he said that his mother would always say, eat, eat. And that was the last thing I think that she said to him before she died. And a hug was the word that his mother used for affection. And he said that air is something we do with our bodies as well as our hearts and minds. And he did not mean these words as commands, even though I think some of us were interpreting that because of the style of the letter and the way that it was composed. Just some things to think about. And this is called part of a series called American Dream, and it's an etching. And so I really thank you for all the conversation we had today, and I hope that you enjoyed looking at the artworks. I always enjoy listening to what people have to say about them. And Christy or Kelly, can you tell us what is going to be our work for next week, our theme?
Absolutely. And I wanted to thank you, Doris and Barbara, for getting our conversation started. And thank you, everyone, for participating. We hope that you will join us for next week's Slow Art Friday. We'll be facilitated by Sarah Renke, Master Docent, and Hope Warshaw, Touring Docent. And their theme is A Walk in the Park.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, and we invite you to register. I think everybody probably has Christy's email, but we'll be sending you a follow-up email, so you'll have it there too. Thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your day and a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.